on this video. We are going to be doing another stream about what a game must do. Diablo 4 Seasons, I think, must do a handful of things. I'm going to take some pretty strong positions about, should you have to start a new character every time? Should there be a focus on moving the loot table forward and not purely focusing on cosmetics? I'm going to outline all of that for you right here at the beginning of the stream. I do that in sort of a show open monologue, so you don't have to go looking for my thoughts, because this is a live stream. I am going to discuss this with a live audience, but I'm going to put all my points right here at the beginning of the stream. I'm going to end the previous member stream. We did a watch list Wednesday where I put a bunch of games on their watch list, like, hey, these are games on my wish list. You should definitely be checking these out. I'm going to end that stream. I'm going to bring them over, so that way they can enjoy this opening monologue. So, Diablo 4 Seasons, what must they do? Well, we already know they're going to require you to start a new character. They're going to be basically totally free with a companion battle pass alongside of it that's not required for purchase. That will focus primarily on cosmetics. And I have a list of 6 things that I really think they need to consider doing, and the last one's a doozy, so make sure you watch the entire open here. First, I don't think they should heavily focus on cosmetics. And I know that's hard in the seasonal format because you start a fresh character and you get a bunch of cool looking stuff. And you can pass that cool looking stuff to your main character, right? We saw this replicated in No Man's Sky with their expeditions. You come, you run the expedition, you complete the expedition, and then you get some cool jetpack or cape or something to hand to your main save. And I just don't think that should be the heavy focus. I think it's okay. Cosmetics should obviously be included, but I don't want it to mainly be that. I think that runs out of steam very, very quickly. This is not a pay-to-win problem, by the way. I think if you want to continue with the game, seasons and new content, I think it will be free, so there's no risk here of it being heavily focused on cosmetics. And I'm okay with a lot of the new seasonal cosmetics actually being paid. That might feel like a bit of a hot take, like, why would you want all the new seasonal cosmetics to be paid? I'm actually okay with that, but I would prefer there to be new loot. I want new things to go chase, new gear, new things for my character, which is related to the second point. I think Diablo 4 Seasons should push the loot table forward. I think they need to consider loot longevity and loot elasticity. If this is going to be an open world MMO, I can't have my character maxed out basically in the first 2 to 3 months that the game is out, and then I never change what I'm carrying. I mean, Paragon boards are great, but I need to see that new loot. Now, we know there will be new loot, there will be new quests, there will be new things to go do, and all of that is free. That's a little concerning because how substantive will it be if it's free? So they're actually not requiring you to spend any money to enjoy all the new seasonal stuff. The only thing you have to pay for is that battle pass. I think loot protection mentality hurts ongoing loot-based games. Destiny went through this when they tried to institute sunsetting. They did a terrible job with it, but the idea being you spend a bunch of time grinding for loot, but you have to be willing to at some point let that loot go and move forward to get something else. I don't think the loot table and the loot pool can stay static for forever. It needs to move forward. You have to push forward into new metas, new builds, new content, and it sounds like they're willing to do that. We don't have tons of detail yet. They've spoken a little bit generically about how there'll be new quests, but they also said they want the whole game to feel fresh and new when a new season starts, and I hope that they mean that. I hope the fact that seasons are totally free doesn't hurt the substance of those things. Leaving things static would drive players away and make new seasons feel like a lot of effort with no payout. I actually think sunsetting of gear should be something organic that happens and is more player driven. There's just new things to chase and new things to get, and you sort of on your own sunset gear and kind of leave it behind. You're like, I'm not going to use this anymore. So those are the first 2 things. Don't heavily focus purely on cosmetics. Be willing to put loot on the table that moves the loot forward. Don't just sort of leave it static with a meta that's established in the first couple of months. Third, I think they need to harness the dungeons. There's 150 of them, or however many there are. It's an insane number. I believe it's 150. And they need to harness procedural generation. Again, right now, we don't have specific details into how these dungeons will work, because some of them will be static, some of them will be tied to story, some of these dungeons will be like a single room, But how's the procedural generation going to work? We know it's like a tile system that allows them to be different every time. Is that all 150? Is it reset every time? Is it only reset after you beat a boss? What if it's tied to a story? Will your dungeon look a whole lot like mine or not? I think a great thing to do in Seasons is to leverage these dungeons, leverage procedural generation. The number of dungeons I don't think can be overlooked in seasonal content. It's a great way to make good on their promise that the whole game is going to feel fresh and new again. I also don't think you should be overlooking procedural generation. I think procedural generation is something that really benefited them with the Rift system inside of the Diablo 3 seasonal format. I think that was a major breakthrough, and I really hope the 8 years of data that they've gathered from that really starts to pay off. I want to see new themes, enemies, bosses, and potential new builds that could be leveraged in the dungeons as well as the Nightmare dungeons. A massive mistake I think that lots of live service games make with their seasonal model is it's this narrow, contained thing, and the rest of the game is sort of laying there dead or not really worth touching, right? You need to touch the entire game, in my opinion. Procedural generation, I think, is the key to keeping the game going, and that is dealing with the next point. I think they need to do more than just harness the dungeons and procedural generation. Number 4 on my list, utilize the entire game, especially the open world and existing content loops. Ongoing content models must keep the whole game fresh to a degree. I believe many games have made that fatal mistake, and that fatal error is they pretty much narrow the end game. Everybody's living in a slice of the game, and the rest of the game slowly fades into obscurity and irrelevancy. No one cares about those early questing areas. No one cares about those early dungeons. They've not been brought up. One of the things I gave feedback on almost immediately in New World was, why don't the dungeons have end game level versions of themselves so that when I get to the end game, I could rerun the dungeon for all that gear at my level? Well, they ended up doing that because they had all these great dungeons. I believe they call them expeditions. They had all these great dungeons, and it was like, well, once I get to the end game, who cares about the low-level versions? That's something that Diablo 4 needs to do with their seasonal format, or at the very least do that with their expansions that we know are coming as well. Those will feature new storylines and new classes. I'd love to see those pieces of the game, those early sections, those low-level sections, bring those up. Let the whole game sort of breathe new life whenever you're adding new content, even if it's done in segments. So after a year, you could say the entire game has been touched, right? Every 3 months you're doing a season. I don't expect the totality of the game to get touched and refreshed every 3 months, right? I don't expect that. But it would be nice if by the end of a year you could say, yeah, the whole game has gotten a little kick in the pants and gotten a little bit of a refresher. An open world loot-based MMORPG cannot shrink down every season to a few new things or activities. That would be a fatal error. This is not Diablo 3. This is meant to be an open world MMORPG, which means you cannot have a loot-based open world game that's an MMORPG shrinking down into this seasonal slice or this thing. And if it's just, again, the rifts and the randomization for cosmetic items, I don't think that's going to be enough. This is why I think the free format is concerning. Like, I understand the free format. Seasons are free. Come play. And then the battle pass is like running alongside of it. My concern would be, how substantive is this content going to be if you're giving it away for free? And if you're primarily relying on those cosmetic sales, are cosmetics going to sort of cannibalize the substance, and it becomes sort of a game where I'm just grinding for pretty things and then I can also buy pretty things? Now, that's related to my next point. My last point's the big one. I'm not there yet. I got one more point to make before I get to my big one that'll probably be our major debate point today about seasons. But before I get there, number 5. Seasons should have paid elements to them, and I don't think they can change this because they've already basically walked out into the public and said seasons will be free. And at one level I get it, but at another level I think I disagree with this decision, even though on paper it's probably the right decision. But I still want to disagree with this because making everything free is going to immediately make me worried about substance. Historically speaking, paid content is always more substantive. Like, the free stuff's usually throwaway, rehashed, not that exciting, right? They have shown that both earnable and buyable armor Like, they have that. Like, you can have, well, not like buyable like in the store, but like buyable from NPCs. But if micros are the key to subsidizing the game, that could start to feel very shallow. You're going to have like earnable and buyable cosmetics, buyable with actual money. That can start to make the game feel very shallow. What exactly am I grinding for? Am I just playing dress up Diablo, or is there more to it than that? Free-to-play models, I think, bring in good money, because the more people you put into the funnel, the more people that are playing, and if they feel it's worth their time, they're far more likely to spend money in your micro store. However, free-to-play models can also dilute the game and make it shallow and make it feel like, what am I really doing here? I would actually, this is kind of my, like, I've been trying to include at least one sort of slightly hot take or controversial opinion in each section here. I would rather pay money every season and get quality content than have the entrance be free. I get it. I understand why they make it free, but it causes concern for me with respect to substance and longevity. Now, lastly, this is the one that we're probably going to end up debating in the stream. I have all 6 of my discussion questions basically based on my 6 points, and this is the 6th point that will likely get a lot of disagreement. Apparently, there's also a subreddit, or on the subreddit, there's a Reddit thread about this. Somebody arguing that they would like to see this change. I do not think a season should require a fresh character, okay? And I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback on this. Well, that's just how it's designed. That early grind, that fast leveling, it's fun, it's fresh, it's new. The seasonal format is structured around that. Okay, I get that. But why can't you give me an or? As in the word or, not an oar for a boat. Why can't you give me an or? You have all those chapters. You have all those requirements. Why not just go in and make alternate versions for an existing character? You could even stack it up a little bit more. Maybe I have to do a little bit more runs. Maybe I have to run a dungeon or beat a boss more than once or beat it at a harder difficulty. I don't know. You would basically ratchet it up a little bit. But the early grind is great. But if I want to grind a season with my current character, let me. Why can't you let me do that? Let me do that sort of, I've already got a character. Let me do all this with that character. Now, I, for one, love grabbing a brand new seasonal character and going to town. It's fun, man. Everything's dropping. Everything's dinging. You're leveling up. It's a great time to test out a class that you may not like. But I feel like eventually I might not want to do that. Season 4 or 5 rolls around, I might say, listen, man, I really like my barbarian. I really like my druid. Can't I just play the season with that? Thank you, Risik, for the gifted members. I'll read them in a moment. Back to my current point. Give me more than cosmetics to chase. If there's new things, new quests, new stories, new loot to chase, but I'm also having this pull of make a new character, grind a new character, I feel like you're creating an unnecessary juxtaposition. Why can't I do it all with an existing character? The new character requirement is good, but I feel like it may have overstayed its welcome. Not yet, but like imagine playing this game a year after its launch and always being met with that, welcome to Season 8, time to make a new character, and you're like, I just kind of feel like not doing that right now. Again, they're probably going to be smart about this. There are going to be new classes. Those will likely land with the expansions, and then that's going to really drive you to say, hey, seasonal characters, the best time to try out that new class because everything's kind of sped up and fun and exciting. And I'll admit, in No Man's Sky, that was one of the reasons expeditions were so fun. That early game grind of getting your ship up and running and mining for those materials and not really having a whole lot of money. Like, that's kind of fun, right? And all those rewards that speed everything up. It's enjoyable. But it doesn't mean it always has to be that way. So I'm going to kind of debate that one with chat. I think giving people the option to not make a new character every season is completely fine. And if you want to make a new character, more power to you. So those are my 6 things that I think that Diablo 4 seasons must do. Don't focus too heavily on cosmetics. Be willing to move the loot table forward. Really leverage your dungeons and procedural generation. Make sure the entire game is being touched and refreshed at least over time. Don't leave it dead on the door. And seasons could be paid. They could have more paid content. And lastly, don't make me make a new character if I don't want to. All right? Those are my musts for Diablo. So in case you missed it, I'm going to rattle them off one more time. I think that Diablo 4 Seasons should focus on these 6 things. Number 1, don't focus too heavily on cosmetics. Number 2, be willing to move the loot table forward and make people leave loot behind. Number 3, dungeons and procedural generation need to be harnessed very well. This impacts number 4. You really need to be freshening up the entire game if it's going to feel like an open world MMORPG. Number 5, consider having more paid content since seasons are free and they only really have the battle pass. That makes me worry about substantive content being in every season. And lastly, I don't think seasons should require me to make a new character every time. That's what I think. I'd love to debate you guys on some of these things. Guys, make sure and smash the like button. This is a new video style we are trying when there's not really any, and honestly, we kind of want to get away from being completely married to the gaming news cycle. And one way of doing that is just doing opinion pieces like this, throwing out my opinion, arguing my case, and then asking you what you think. So, where do you agree or disagree with me? I think people in the previous stream, in the member stream, wait, let me add these 5 members. That takes us to 57 on the day. My man Risic has been so generous lately. Once that inverts from a 57 to a 75, I have to give 5 more members. Ambient, Zachary, Justin, PlayStation Portal, and I'm only seeing 4 names. I'm not seeing 5. I don't know what happened to the 5th. Maybe we didn't have enough people here. Maybe not enough people click allow gifts. Somebody claim that last gift from Risic, or somebody gift another to, like, unstick it. You mean like Season Rebirth in Diablo 3? What do you mean by same character? Same character from 0 or from the point last season ended? Okay, think of it this way. Draxer. I start the game and I play as a druid. And I play for months, and I grind, and I grind, and I get all the way max level, and I got all my stuff, and I got my loadout, and I got my gear, and then Season 2 rolls around, okay? And they're like, here's all the chapters of Season 2, here's all the challenges, here's all the things that you need to do. Okay, cool. If you want to do all those things, you got to start a new character. Well, why can't I just use my druid? What's the problem here? I'm not saying that I don't like starting a new character, a new seasonal character. I think it's fun. I'm not against it. The question is, why can't I just use my existing character? There's plenty of people that are going to be like, yo, my character's kind of where I want them. That stuff looks cool. Those seasonal rewards look dope. Can I just use my druid that I spent all this time with? Right? I don't think everybody's addicted to the multi-character grind, the multi-character build. I just don't think lots of people want to do that. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, where's the harm in giving the option? Here's why I think starting a fresh character is good, says Mike Quad. He's in our members-only Discord, so he doesn't have a character limit, so he's able to write quite a bit more. This is a reason to cash in on that as a member. In some games that have seasonal model, especially if they have been around for a while, levels and power and numbers end up meaning nothing. There's always something harder to do, or we have to grind old content that we are over-leveled for. Starting fresh makes it so that there's a difficulty hill to overcome, but you don't end up becoming total OP monster demolishing all the content. I would kind of hope that you could use your own character and just wipe out power level XP and start your character fresh. All right. I like the way you phrase that because it lets me push back in a variety of ways. Number 1, consider what I said during my show open, right? Points 3 and 4 are very much related to what you're saying, Mike. I said, use the dungeons and procedural generation to really make that content feel good. It doesn't need to feel like recycled, like, oh, it's just recycled content, but like, let me go back and really enjoy all that content. Number 4, I said, touch the entire game. Don't leave the entire game there laying there dead on the floor like no one cares about it. That solves some of what you're saying. Like, oh man, going back to this old content's lame, everything's weak. Okay, but that's not how it should be. If the seasonal content works properly, you should be able to go into those open world environments, those dungeons, nightmare dungeons or whatever, and it should be given a fresh feeling again. And seasonal content could do the same thing. I am not in disagreement with some of what you're saying. The premise of what you're saying is true. Man, those early levels are awesome. If you've never played as a barbarian and you're trying it out in a season, that's a great time to do it. Why? You're just leveling up so fast, getting stuff quickly, getting to try out new abilities, getting loot like crazy. It really, really expedites things. And I think when you do that and you taste that, I think people are won over by that. But I also think eventually people think that gets long in the tooth. It's like, I've done this enough. Think about Season 11 with me. I'm not talking about Season 3, where or even Season 6, where, hey, they added a new class, and this is the best way to try out a new class. You can play your level 100 character, but World Tier 4 or 5 would make it tough. Yeah, they're not making you leave behind. Oh, you're saying would adding additional difficulties to the season be a good compromise? Anthony, that's kind of what I was getting at in my show open. If I take my level 100 character and I want to do the season grind with him, just make the requirements harder. Make them bigger. Let's imagine one of the first things they make you do with your seasonal character is beat a dungeon. Okay? Beat a dungeon. So for the seasonal character, you got to go beat a dungeon. Not a problem. There's one right here in the beginning. Let me go run this really quickly. Ding! You get all the stuff. You level up quick. It feels amazing. The dopamine's tickling your brain, and you're feeling awesome. Let's say you want to take your existing character. It would say, beat 4 dungeons. Well, why? That's not fair. That's plenty fair. You're stronger. You're endgame. Right? And then it would seasonally affect all those dungeons. Like, anytime you go into a dungeon, you'd have the option of seasonal or vanilla. Do you want to go into this vanilla dungeon? Everything's going to be level 4. No, I want to go into the dungeon. I want it to be a seasonal dungeon. I'm working on my seasonal grind. Make it a seasonal dungeon. Well, what's that do? Everything's at your level. Everything's got the new stuff. If there's new enemies, if there's new attacks, if there's new loot pools, if there's new drops, it's all dropping in that dungeon. But you got to do 4 of them because you're obviously going to move through pretty quick. You're a maxed out character. So you're doing the seasonal grind with your existing character. You're essentially doing the same thing that the seasonal guy is doing it, but you're doing it at your level. It's not about like, oh, this isn't fair. It's about what's wrong with giving me the option. Like, what's the problem with that? How do you justify it for the ladder race? You need to explain that to me. If somebody was interested in the ladder race, Fuzzy, wouldn't they just start a new character? If you're using your existing character, you would just know that you're opting out of the ladder race. You're not going to be a part of the ladder race. Like, you're not doing that. You can play your level 100 character. Oh, I already read that. Sorry. Rebirthing was nice, but in the end, non-seasonal characters became pointless except for muling items. In Diablo 3, you can rebirth a non-seasonal character. It strips the non-seasonal character and mails your gear back to your non-season save. The character becomes seasonal at that point. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, imagine getting to Season 11 and being like, I really just don't feel like starting over with a brand new character again. I really like my character. I like what my character has. Let me use them. Seasonal characters resetting every season helps the not to worry about power creep, having to innovate way more, and having to overall design way more around your existing power and items. Jolly good show. Thank you, Lufi. I mean, I get that, Solemn. Right? It's not realistic for people that developed game content. Right. And but here's the thing. Why can't you just scale everything to where I am? Think about it, Solemn. Is running a rift with the season with a Diablo 3 seasonal character, is that really hard to do? No, it's pretty quick. So you just have to replicate that for an endgame player. All you have to do is replicate the difficulty. Oh yeah, run a dungeon once as a seasonal character. Okay, run this dungeon 4 times. All dungeons are at your level now if you're working on the seasonal grind. Right? So if I jump into Diablo 4 season and I want to do a new character or my existing character, I'm essentially doing the same thing, but if I use my existing character, everything's at my level, everything's scaled to me, and I'm able to check those boxes. I'm able to get those things done. Go beat this boss in this field. Like, it does that sometimes, right? In Diablo 3, yeah, go beat this boss in this field. He spawns up there. Okay, well, if I'm playing as my existing character, I would go up there, everything would be scaled to my level, and I'd have to do it more than once. Maybe you make me do it twice. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing as a seasonal character. I'm roughly completing it in the same amount of time, approximately, and it has a very similar difficulty threshold because you're trying to match things to where I am. And then I don't have to start over. You know what I mean? Could we get 11 more likes on the video, guys? Thanks for a great turnout for our second show of the day, talking about Diablo 4. Seasons must be more than a battle pass, arguing about all the things I think they need to do with the Diablo 4 gameplay content loop within the seasons themselves. Right now, we're kind of debating whether or not they should make you start a new character. Feel free to weigh in if you're a big Diablo fan. If you're not aware, they did this. Hey, somebody ordered some Reforge roast. My man Death ordered a bag of Frickmas. If you guys haven't ordered any Frickmas blend or any of our Reforge roast coffee, man, get those orders in. The website's back up and running. Maintenance has concluded. Mo says, to be honest, that just doesn't sound fun to me at all. What doesn't sound fun to you? Starting over or using your existing character? Path of Exile is unlike Season 20, says Kage. The community is used to this seasonal new character system. It's the one reason I only play like one season every few seasons. I hate starting over, but it's a staple. It's funny, some end up just using the same builds each season anyway. Right, but okay, it's a staple and people like it. Why can't I have the option to not do it? I'm not saying take it away. I'm saying give people the option. Oh, you're saying using existing doesn't sound fun. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Do you know what you would do? You would start a new character. I'm not trying to take it away from you. I'm saying don't force others to do it. That's what I'm saying. If they were to make difficulty scale to power level, then why have power level at all? Just get rid of that and use some kind of magic and multiplier instead. Well, no, you don't want to get rid of that sense of progress. You don't want to get rid of that sense of like, I'm a level this and I'm seeing things in the world at that level. That gives you that sense of accomplishment. I used to make people for playing Diablo in the 90s. Oh, make fun of people for playing Diablo in the 90s. Tried Diablo 3 2 years ago, ended up platinuming it. It's a fun game. But you can use existing just in normal? What are you talking about? I tracked my friends down and apologized. True story. You have the option to play Standard League if you would like in PoE, which has all your stuff from previous leagues. Is there no ladder resets in D4? I have no idea if they've spoken to whether or not there'll be ladder resets in Diablo 4. It's built-in split player base as well. Your character would be isolated from everyone else. Otherwise, you'd be power leveling characters. Yeah, but as big as this game's going to be, Fuzzy, is that really a concern? You'd have people that want to use existing, and you'd have people that don't. You know what I mean? I like resetting my characters every season. I don't know, it just hits my brain right. Wheezy, I'm the exact same way for a while. Right? I'm actually not even talking about probably the first year of the game. For the first year of the game, bro, I got no problem with it. It lets me try out all the classes. There'll likely be a new class within the first 13 months in an expansion. Then I get to try out that new class, right? I'm talking about when we get to like season 13. And I'm like, man, can I just not do that this time? Can I just grab one of my existing characters that I like and just kind of rock and not start over? Because starting over is dope. It is. The new car smell, the dings. Every 5 seconds there's a ding, ding. You're leveling. Stuff's dying. Loot's dropping. You're equipping. It's Green Arrow City. Every single time there's loot on the ground, you're replacing something. Oh, that's stronger. Oh, that's stronger. Right? I'm just saying, where's the harm in giving somebody the option? That's all. Where's the harm in giving somebody the option? Hey, man, it's been 12 seasons, dude. It's been 12 seasons. Why don't you, why don't you use your current character if you'd like? As opposed to it. Like, I don't know. Does it hurt you if I don't do that? That's why I never did season in Diablo 3. It gets old. I just want to play with my main character. Maybe for the first 4 seasons. Imagine doing this for 20 seasons. Yeah. That's exactly the point that I'm making, is I just feel like it'll eventually get long in the tooth. Seasonal format, I think, is totally fine. I think the idea of starting fresh, I think the idea of getting those little quick dings and levels and loot dropping everywhere. And here's the other thing I'll say about seasonal content. Okay? And this is a pushback on what Fuzzy's saying. Oh, it'll split the player base. Do you know what splits the player base up in Diablo 3? Making me do a bunch of stuff solo. Man, that can frick all the way off. I was enjoying making seasonal characters with my wife, but we kept hitting the same snag. We kept hitting the exact same snag. I'd get so far in the season, it'd be like, do this solo, do that solo. Get out of here. No. I want to play with my wife. I don't want to play solo. What's the point in that? That's another thing I would say. Diablo 4 seasons need to give me the option to always have somebody with me. Do this solo, or do this with another player, or do this in multiplayer. That drove me crazy. We got so far in one season, and it was like every other thing it was asking me to do was to play alone. And I was like, I don't understand why you're doing this. This seems completely counterintuitive to, especially, Diablo 4 is setting its sights on being an open world MMORPG. No, I've never tried Path of Exile. Diablo 2 had an option to name an item per campaign and difficulty. It meant 3 items per character tied to that character. Those items could go next season with your character in D4, something along that line. Oh, right, like you can kind of like reset the character but carry some things with you. Diablo 3 seasons get very strange after about season 5. It's all equipment that's hacked, built to be broken, and just shared amongst the community. I suppose the crux is people hold the ladder grind in high regard, and if you're already max and capable of power leveling, it ruins it fast. Well, here's the thing, Kage. If I'm playing with an existing character, it would tell me you won't be in the ladder run. You would know that you're not doing that. Like, that wouldn't be fair. It would be very clear. If you care about the seasonal ladder climb, you're not doing that if you're using your existing character. You're mainly just doing it for the check boxes and the rewards. I suspect the seasons are only free for 12 to 24 months and then maybe will attract a cost. They said 2 things which contradict each other in the Diablo live stream. The seasons are completely free because they're included in the box price. They may, after a period, drop the box price to free to play once the base game has fallen behind. 43 minutes in, they say this. In terms of a new character, Diablo 3 veterans have multiple ways to boost characters. The existence of character boosting, I feel, is evidence people get tired of the new character every season. Disagree solo challenges should always exist, and co-op. I think Diablo 3 is an ARPG. The whole game should be possible to complete solo, including endgame. No. I don't have a problem with solo stuff. It's a solo requirement, Hilly. So it should say, do this solo, or do this with a player, with another player. Like, I don't mind you being able to do something solo, but it would be like, this is what it would say. It would say, complete a rift at this level solo. And I was like, I don't want to play solo. I'm playing with my wife. I don't have time to play solo. So a multiplayer game, seasonal character, can't get the seasonal grind done unless you're willing to play by yourself. That doesn't make any sense. You're cruising along with your bud, and you're playing, and you're getting the seasonal stuff done, and then all of a sudden it's like, sorry, man, I got to go play by myself. There's no harm in saying, run this rift at this level by yourself, or do it twice with another player. Like, there's no harm in that. There's no harm. Like, we're both doing the grind. I just prefer to play with another player. I don't want to play by myself. And this is an online open world MMO, so it's like you can't be constantly splitting people up in the seasonal grind. Yo, what's good, Kill You? And I tend to agree with what Hilly's saying at the beginning, though, that people being like, hey, I'm just, dude, I'm speed leveling every season. I'm tired of this. I think it's obvious they are having it. What's obvious they're having it? So we got a Reddit. In advance, this is only a suggestion based on my opinion. I'm looking forward to different perspectives. Personally, I am not yet a huge fan of the idea of a seasonal reset. Building up a character over many or even years and trying to get the last few percentages of power and stronger gear is more fulfilling to me than logging into a game and seeing 10 different characters which are irrelevant when a new season starts. It would be cool to be able to unlock existing characters for every new season by completing the battle pass or reaching a certain point of the season with a seasonal character. Also, unlike they said during the live stream, finding certain legendary aspects in a dungeon for a druid won't make me want to play a druid next season. If I'm a sorcerer main, then I love playing that on and on. I don't see a point in creating the same sorcerer every season because I love to play the lightning build I am currently playing or anything else. For me, the idea of the seasonal system looks like it's going for different partners here than instead of aiming at long-term marriage. They say it will really feel like your choices matter, but only for 3 months, LOL. Yeah, people are responding and basically saying, I don't see this ever happening. You're not required to participate in seasons if you prefer playing the one specific character for forever. Yeah, saying your decisions matter, but then basically being like, yeah, that character doesn't matter in 3 months. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. If you're just tuning in, we're discussing Diablo 4 seasons and what they must do. I trotted out 6 things that I think they must do in my show open, and we're kind of debating right now whether or not a season should require you to make a new character. Connected to that, I took issue with in Diablo 3 when I would do a seasonal character with my wife. I took issue with the game making me do something solo. Hey, you go run this rift at this thing solo, this level solo. Well, that's not really enjoyable for somebody who's trying to split screen co-op seasonal grind with his wife. Like, give me the option to run it solo or make it a little bit harder or maybe run it twice if I'm playing another, with another person. Like if it's telling me to run it once by myself and I run it with another person, give me 50% completion on it, and so that way, I got to do it 2 times. I'll be honest, I was never a fan of the seasonal characters. I barely touched it in Diablo 3. I'm not interested at all if it's in Diablo 4. It is in Diablo 4. It is. I think you only have to do the Rift solo once, kind of like having you experience it first. Okay, but here's the problem, Quintar. The one season, I took both of our characters and I did the thing solo. And then the next thing we did fine. And then another solo thing cropped up. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. Like, I'm not going to periodically be like, all right, babe, you got to log out. And then she just plays on her phone or whatever and checks Pinterest while I grind my character and then grind her character. And then, okay, now we can play together again. Like, it kept popping up. There were numerous things we had to do solo. Diablo Immortal voice. What, you don't have second consoles? I don't see how you can run a single character in Diablo for forever. The exciting element is unlocking new items, gear, and moves. Once you get to a certain level in Diablo, everything's just repeats. Oh no, I for one agree that I think the brilliance of the seasonal model is that it scratches that itch of the early game grind, the early game leveling, right? It scratches that itch. But I just think that after a while, people don't want to do it. It's like, okay, it's season number 12. Could I just take my max level druid and do all this to get the pretty things, to get the little check boxes, to experience the new loot, to experience the new content? Like, do I really have to start a new character every time? You know what I mean? Like, I just think people get to a point where it's sensible to say, look, man, that early game grind is fun. It was fun the first 11 times I did it. I don't really feel like doing it right now. Here's the grand twist of irony. Is letting people not do it would probably make some people end up doing it. Because they'd go to do the seasonal grind with their existing character, and they'd be like, that was pretty fun, but I missed that early game grind, those early game dings and that quick leveling. I think next season I'll do a new character, right? Like, I think giving people the option to take a break from it, to be like, I don't want to make a new character, but I want to get the seasonal stuff. I'm going to use my existing druid. I actually think giving people that freedom would actually, at some level, make that new seasonal character grind more appealing, because they take a break from it and then they end up kind of missing it. They're like, man, that is really fun. It is really exciting to level up at a faster level, to constantly get drops that matter, to experience that early game build crafting again, where I'm picking different skills and abilities and finding loot that helps my build. I just don't understand the appeal to a temporary character in a loot grindy MMO, especially if they're going open world. Hilly says, seasonal model should be a continuation of the character and the world. A reset is an option of a new class is good, but the focus should be taking your main character in and acquiring new items to take into the next season. It sounds way better to me. I agree with the dude on Reddit. Wheezy says, they also want to seemingly push back hard on classifying as an MMO. They probably have their reasons for not wanting to go down the MMO path. I've not seen much of the evidence of them pushing back on an MMO, but I feel like that's how it's been classified, as an open world JRPG MMO. Still my favorite, not JRPG, I'm sorry, ARPG. Still my favorite thing to do is to start a fresh character. It's funny for me to be like saying this and being kind of against it. It's like, I like it, but I also kind of don't like it. It's like, this is good, but I'm also kind of like, nah. Okay, here's the quote. Fine-tuning the right approach. Hang on, I'm too zoomed in. Fine-tuning the right approach to multiplayer in Diablo IV has been challenging. Our goal has always been to incorporate elements from shared world games without the game ever feeling like it's veering into massively multiplayer territory. To be clear, this is a philosophy rather than a tech limitation. We find that the game stops feeling like Diablo and the world feels less dangerous when you see other players too often or in too high numbers. So, are they pushing against being labeled as an MMO, or are they pushing against tropes of MMOs that make the game feel not like Diablo? There's two ways to read that, Wheeze. I don't know. You got world bosses and 150 dungeons and people roaming around fighting stuff together. I don't know what else to call that. Are they just trying to avoid MMORPG tropes because those tropes would make the game not feel like Diablo? Seeing 20 people in an open field hacking down some world boss, that's not going to feel like Diablo. That's going to feel like something else. So, to me, it feels like it's an MMO. They're wanting to maybe avoid the pitfalls of MMO because they're concerned that MMO pitfalls would really grate against the identity of a Diablo game. Depends on the journey, leveling a new character, going through the open world again on the same character is just a different build because Blizz makes it harder to reset your skills endgame. Oh, for sure. They said it's going to get more expensive as you go. Like if you really, really want to, respec late game, it's going to get more expensive as you go. Some people that have already played the game, they said that the early game, it's really easy. They said it's not expensive at all. They were respecking pretty regularly. I just read this part is very specific. To be clear, this is a philosophy rather than a tech limitation. They have all capabilities to be an MMO. They don't want to be one. That's not what it said, Wheezy. I feel like you're reading that into what they said. They're not saying that they don't want to be one. Listen to what they said. Our goal is to incorporate elements from shared world games without the game ever feel like it's veering into massive multiplayer territory. To be clear, this is a philosophy rather than a tech limitation. We find the game stops feeling like Diablo and the world feels less dangerous when you see other players too often or in too high numbers. Like, they're pushing back against that MMO trope. They don't want it to veer into that territory of there's just people everywhere all the time. They want it to feel more like a shared world game. But a shared world game is still an MMO. Now, it might be MMO light, like Destiny is referred to as an action MMO, and many people say it's MMO light. I don't know. I could see it from the angle you're saying of like, they're like, this is a philosophy. This isn't a tech limitation. They're basically saying, we could throw 100 people in the open world fighting a world boss if we wanted. We're not doing that. Our philosophy is we think that grates against the Diablo identity. Does that mean that it's not an MMO because they're avoiding those tropes? I think Diablo 3 did the loot better by adding ethereals. I would only change that last item. The weapons should break at the end of the season and should give a junk ton of resources to jump into the next seasonal grind. Diablo 3 seasons are good, but they really in every sense a different game from the base game. They're walled apart. I don't like the idea of gear breaking at the end of a season. No, I don't like that at all. They're pleasing their offline crowd as well. Leveling a regular new character and leveling a seasonal character are not the same experience. Oh, power creep. Well, sure, they want to avoid power creep. I'm in favor of coming up with systems to avoid power creep, 100%. 100%. If you guys are enjoying the stream, by the way, I'd love to hear from you, especially if you're new. If you are new and you've never been here before, hit subscribe so you can talk in my chat. Subscribing costs absolutely nothing. We've had a massive day, 57 new members, a lot of those gifted. And if you're enjoying the content, also consider becoming a member, or at the very least, smash that like button. Give that like button a smash. Diablo has a single player following as well. Yeah, I'm not against playing by myself. I'm not against people playing by themselves. I didn't like the seasonal grind being like, hey, go do this thing by yourself. I don't like that. That's not my cup of tea. I don't like that at all. If you want to do the seasonal grind with a buddy, with a partner, I think that that's totally fair and fine. Again, I'm thinking in the realm of obviously myself and how I approach games. And I'm thinking, hey man, I'll sit down couch co-op, man. Let me grind this stuff out. You know, let me grind it out. Let me just keep going. I don't have to like, kick my wife out of the party and then go play by myself. The point of a season is here's something you already know, but you completely change its head and gear. But you completely changed on its head and new gear, etc. Ethereals are dummy busted, says Fuzzy. They are the season shtick. Breaking is the only way they don't break the base game. Oh, I mean, yeah, I'm not against that. You do an ethereal. You do these sets, you do these things. They're crazy strong. And then at the end of the season, you got to bust them, because if not, it's power creep. It'll ruin the rest of the game. So you get to be insanely strong with some particular build or some particular item for the course of the season. Yeah, like I can see why they would do that. It creates a theme. It creates a meta. I'm not against that. I'm not. But I don't know. I feel like there's ways to push the loot table forward without necessarily doing power creep. I think there's ways to do it. There's contextual power. There's seasonal themes. There's new enemies. You could instead of having difficulty levels for seasonal content, you could have realms, right? You actually switch realms, and when you're in other realms, you need new gear, you need new armor, and to do new damage types, because there's new enemies in those realms that are susceptible to certain damage types. Just stop non-seasonal stuff and split season into leader and non-leader. Leader ranking from 0, and non-leader just seasonal stuff with everything you earned. Lets everybody enjoy seasonal stuff. All the people praising Diablo 3 seasons, are you playing them now? Oh, I bet they are. I mean, they can answer for themselves. Weezy says, no, I'm waiting for Diablo 4. I mean, the people that I know that like the Diablo 3 seasons, Eugene, they play them pretty much on the regular. I could see people taking a break right now and being like, yeah, we're 6 months out, I'm going to take a break. A half a year break will make Diablo 4 feel super fresh. Hilly says yes. They shouldn't force single or multi on anyone, agreed for sure. I just think it's easy to add an or option. Do this solo or do this. Like, I think that's not that difficult. That doesn't seem like a really big ask. That seems like a totally fair request. You're playing the season just for a chill game. I'm fine with the restart as long as they add new mechanics like in PoE. I don't even really need new mechanics. I think starting a new character feels good. I think it's fresh and it's fun. I just wonder sometimes if you could let me not do that. You know? Can we see the Soundwave shirt? Where is it from? Yeah. Yeah. This is from 80s Tees. From 80s Tees, obviously vintage. I believe this is G1. This is what they look like from that generation. So you can use the shirt command. If you guys go to 80s Tees, the shirt command today will take you to the Transformers collection. And if you use code LONO, you'll get 30% off. Playing a Crusader Blessed Hammer build, and it's fun to run around with a ton of hammers, killing everything. PoE, Power over Ethernet. No, Path of Exile. Path of Exile is a very, in some ways, very similar game to Diablo. Dungeon crawler, grindy, you know, ARPG, action RPG, I guess is what they call them. I played all the characters. It was fun each time. Just didn't like the Rift-only endgame grind, and seasons aren't for me. If you're going to wipe my character each time, so I never touched it. If Diablo 4 wasn't coming out in 6 months, I'd be playing the new season, says Wheezy. How many pulls did it take to get that shirt? If you're just tuning in, we are discussing Diablo 4 seasons, basically arguing that I think they should be more than battle passes, and why I think that is touched on a variety of things. I outlined 6 points at the beginning of the stream about how I think they should approach it. I was gonna try something today. We need to be streaming at least 30 minutes to unlock like paid subs over on that other website, but I don't have my cable. Maybe at the very, very end of the stream we'll do it. We'll do 30 minutes over there on the that platform is giving us paid subs, but we don't stream over there anymore. We weren't getting good luck streaming over there. Maybe they'll treat us better once we have paid subs. We'll still stream here, obviously. It would be a multi-stream. I have to use my phone, though. PoE has a lot of ex-Diablo devs working for them. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Yeah, Lost Ark, you would find similars in Lost Ark to games like Diablo and Path of Exile. Dungeon crawling, very action-oriented. Lost Ark is an MMORPG, right? No, not purple. Not purple. Yeah, it would be a multicast. The talk will let you stream, and there are lots of people that like watching over there, and there's lots of people that like supporting over there, like with paid subs. So it's the monetization and the people willing to like jump in and pay over there. It's kind of like purple, like it's like more endemic to the platform. TT, yeah. I don't like saying the name of the platform. YouTube doesn't like you saying the name of that platform. You get into Diablo lore that much? That's my favorite element of the games. No, I don't. No, not Bookface. It's like the dance app, Kitty app, that suddenly became a whole lot more focused on gaming and live streams, and it might get banned in America. The set dungeon challenges would need to be completely reworked if not done solo, says Hilly. I see your point of always wanting to play co-op, but I do think the game is allowed to have solo-only challenges. What would be better if they didn't show up in seasonal challenges? That's what I'm saying, Hilly. Like, I think it's totally fine to give something to the solo guy, right? If you're the solo guy and you like doing things by yourself, fine. I'm totally fine with them giving you things. It just feels really disruptive in the seasonal grind to be like, hey, you completed the, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then all of a sudden it starts introducing solo stuff. Like, we wouldn't have even have played if I would have started seasonal characters and within 1 or 2 of the chapters or the challenges, it was like wanting us to do stuff solo. I'd have been like, oh, this isn't designed for multiplayer. I would have immediately bailed and been like, sorry, babe, I guess we'll have to find something else to do. But the fact that it like waited, it felt like a sucker punch. It felt like a dadgum sucker punch. It was like, okay, we were rocking solo, and now all of a sudden, I'm sorry, we were rocking just the 2 of us, and now all of a sudden that we're X number levels into the seasonal grind. Well, yeah, gotta stop. Riker's Diablo lore series is great. Yeah, he's got a really good voice. I'm kind of jealous of his voice. I watched one of his videos recently, and I was like, dadgum. I was like, what an amazing voice. I get jealous of rich, deep voices when people make like their games. Or, I'm sorry, their videos. It's a third-person top camera angle that's a looter. It's a grindy game, but it's fun. What's he asking about? Never heard of either, sorry. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Lost Ark and Path of Exile, man. That could, I do think that Lost Ark could turn people off, like if they're just looking for something like quick and accessible, but Lost Ark's also really, really enjoyable. It's really good quick player feedback, like the cool little, the attacks you can do, the combos you can do. It's dope. It's got good things going for it, I think. He's great at storytelling. PoE is really unfriendly to newcomers without YouTube builds. Has over-the-top passive tree and impact builds and itemization. Yeah, I never like hearing that. I remember when I was like trying to get into Warframe, I remember people saying that. They were like, the builds are really complicated. They don't really teach you anything. They definitely don't hold your hand. And I'm like, man, I don't need my hand held, but I also don't need to be like blindfolded and dropped off in the middle of the forest either. Like, isn't there a middle ground here? You know what I'm saying? Like, too many systems that aren't explained. Right, like, I don't need my hand held to the point that like you're going to level the character for me. But at the same time, I don't want to be blind and in the dark. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You a fan of Lance Riddick voice acting? Yeah, he does a great job in Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West. And he's also going to be the voice in that new Hellboy game, that cartoonish third-person Hellboy game. That game looked kind of fun. And obviously, he does a voice in Destiny. Bloodshed's my build for equipment guide for character. He's really good with kits and builds. That's why I disliked Warframe. They just dropped you into the game and said, here you go. I just want to know the basics of each system. Seasonal characters are definitely going to get old. That's kind of been our main debate point today. What did you guys think about in my show open when I said that I'm worried about the substance of the seasons since they're totally free? And Hilly thinks they're playing some kind of verbalistic grammatical ninjutsu because he's like, oh, the seasons are included in the box price. Well, what about, a year and a half from now? Are you still going to be saying that? The box price of Diablo 4 includes all future seasons? Like, he thinks they're playing some kind of, verbalistic new ninjutsu, so they'll start charging for them in the future. I don't know if I agree with him. I don't think I do. I don't think you'd throw down that gauntlet to then hurt yourself in the future. I think they would say something to the effect that, like, yeah, the first year of seasons we're going to have zero charge for. After that, we're going to start to charge a premium. I think they would just tell people that the first year of seasons are going to be totally free. To let people know, hey, this is what we're offering. My concern is with seasons being free, it's going to hurt substance. It's like the substance, in my experience, historically speaking, the substance of content is hurt by it being free. You know, there's plenty of games out there. They're like, yeah, we're going to do this free update. We're going to do this free update. And it's like, okay, that's nice, but substance ends up kind of going down over time in my mind. That's a good point. Is it going to be a $70 price point for the game and first year of a season, and then after that you pay for them? They do it now with Diablo 3 season. All 28 of them are free. Yeah, and how substantive are those seasons? Right? How substantive are the seasons in Diablo 3? I mean, if we're honest, is there a lot of substance there? They have stated that they want to have new gameplay mechanics that change the level up experience. Not sure how game-changing it'll be. Yeah, each season they want it to have like, it'll reveal more about your character's place in it. It's an opportunity to introduce new characters or revisit old ones. Yeah, it's new stuff to do, new quests, new progression. Oh, yeah. It all sounds great. It all sounds like they're really being thoughtful about a Diablo 4 season. Oh yeah, you're gonna have a ton to do for $0, which is crazy to me. They must be really, really confident in the battle pass just selling like gangbusters. They must be really confident in the battle pass and the cosmetics selling like crazy. Oh yeah, make it all free. And listen, there are free-to-play models and statistics and research that indicate it works. Free-to-play models tend to increase microtransaction spending. People are way more likely to part with their pennies when they're basically given, you know, the game or the new content for free. 100%. I look at Overwatch paid battle pass and it still lacks content in my opinion. Hopefully they don't mimic it in Diablo 4. So they're going to take a page out of the PoE book? I don't know. They've given generic descriptions about new quests, new items, new progression, new enemies, new stories. Like it's all very sort of 30,000 feet. They've not been like, here's an example of what a season will look like. They've not done that. Battle Pass funded content, I've heard that before. PoE is free to play, including seasons. Their cosmetics are some of the most expensive you've ever seen, and people buy them up. People tend to be more willing to buy things up. They tend to be way more willing to buy things up if you're charging them nothing. It works. The research on this is sound. Like, if you've seen the charts and the research into free-to-play models on mobile, the research is bonkers. Like, the amount that spending goes up when you shift to free-to-play model. Like, there were games that shifted to it, and just the amount of micro spending that went up it's like a straight line. It's like it just shoots up. It's just immediately like straight line up. Way more spending. Games are also sure to see players with paid for cosmetics. Yeah, you'll see tons of players with paid for cosmetics. Okay, I wondered why my kids were watching a movie. I can hear them in the other room. Robert says, I very much dislike this business model. I don't dislike the business model, Robert. It just always kind of causes me to be concerned. It's like, well, we are, you know, are we going to get the short end of the stick? You know, is it going to be thin? Is it going to be weak? Is it not going to be a good showing? Like, is it, you know, where's the substance going to be? You know, according to wowhead.com, The first season will be available after launch. The plan is to have up to 4 seasons a year, each with exclusive new features, quest lines, enemies, legendary and unique items, Paragon boards, glyphs, and more. Diablo 4 seasonal design is inspired by Diablo 3 seasons, meaning that you will create a fresh character to level up. Once the new season goes live, players should experience new season gameplay features within the first hour of play. Additionally, new quest lines will introduce players to the content of the season. So, you can't take your existing character on those quest lines, it doesn't sound like. The seasons will be very similar in the vein of Diablo 3, says Hilly. The expansions will be the content drops linked to new classes. They will likely be more than Diablo 3, but if they're walled off and separate exercise to the main game, they'll have little value and not something that I would buy. I'll buy it just for the classes. Another priority will be identifying quality of life-based things. Each season will feature new live events, providing unique rewards along the way. Seasonal Journey. The season journey as we know it from Diablo 3 will make a return in Diablo 4, featuring seasonal rewards with the completion of each chapter. Completing a seasonal journey will require you to overcome difficult challenges, rewarding you with unique cosmetics. New challenges will be added regularly. The new season journey is free to all players. Players will also be able to progress the season pass by completing the seasonal journey objectives. And then they talk about the seasonal pass having free tiers, the premium tier, gameplay boost. The gameplay boost will not be, you won't get them any faster, even if you pay money to max out the battle pass right away. The free boosts, the gameplay boosts along the way, you don't get them any faster. Players can instantly purchase tiers from the season pass, unlocking the corresponding rewards, but you don't get any of the boosts early. You don't. I'm just hoping the game has a lot of content. That's the biggest thing for me. If you don't want to buy cosmetics, that's an option, and you still get the benefit of the continued support from those who do. Yeah, and I think that format works. I don't think anybody's against that format. I think in general, giving people optional cosmetics, I think it works. I think it works rather well. I don't think anybody looks at, optional cosmetics or cosmetic stores or battle passes. That doesn't really cause me to be alarmed. Just so we're clear, I'm not like, oh my gosh, they have optional cosmetics in a battle pass. None of that is causing me concern. None. That's garden variety monetization practices in 2022. I'm looking at it from the perspective of, if that's the only thing subsidizing the seasonal content, that's when I'm like, okay, well, what if they don't sell well? If you're not charging for the content, what sort of substance can I expect if it's all free? It's an ongoing MMO light action RPG, and you're charging basically for none of the content all year. I don't know. I'm not saying that the content will be bad. I'm just like, I'd much rather be like, you want to play the new seasonal content? It's $10. Put a little $10 price tag on there. More than likely, they're not doing that because they know that will maximize sales. If they don't charge you, if a Diablo 4 season is free to play, they know you're way more likely to buy the battle pass. You're way more likely to buy cosmetics. You'll actually spend more. If they charge everybody 10, a ton of people would just spend 10 and stop. But if you spend nothing, you'll spend 10 or 15 on the battle pass, and then you might spend a little bit more. Why? Well, you got in free. You got in free. Why not? Why not throw a little scratch their way? What's the big deal? Especially at the Diablo 4 gameplay, if the content loop is good, then... Hilly says, I don't like optional cosmetics. However, if the game itself is full of cosmetics, earnable, and linked to challenging content, I will look the other way. I've never bought into the argument they are non-pay and play impacting. Sorry, that's false. The way I look in the game is the game, and they know That's why they sell the stuff. Here's why I think optional cosmetics are totally fine. Because they're a necessity. You can't come up with other monetization models to sustain games of this size. You can't. What are you going to charge people for? So in Fortnite, how are you going to subsidize that game without optional cosmetics? How? And if you look at games like Destiny or you look at a game like Diablo, how are you going to subsidize the constant flow of content? How? Where's the money coming from? What are you going to charge for? Well, why don't we charge for cosmetics? It's not power in the game. It's I mean, if you look at what we took issue with like Hogwarts Legacy, like day one paywalling pieces of the game, like the Dark Arts Battle Arena. We have a video coming today about how they're going to have to balance the Dark Arts magic because they're allowing you to do certain things, right? But day one, they've got a paywalled piece of the game just hanging out, right? Where's the money going to come from? Like, it's just like, I feel like it's an economic reality. Like, you look at games these days and you look at their monetization practices and it's like, this is because they need cash flow to come in. That's the only way this is sustainable. DLC works for me, but I'm old and bitter. Yeah, here's why I don't think DLC works. DLC format doesn't work because of everything I just talked about. The minute the content's paid for, people expect a certain level of substance. So you got to space out the delivery to make sure it has substance, which means you lose players. If you don't space it out and you deliver like DLC format, like let's say Diablo IV DLC was the format and they weren't doing seasons and they were delivering it like every 3 months, it would not be substantive enough to generate enough money. Like, there's just no way. It's so much easier to be like 1 million people each buy a couple cosmetics as opposed to 500,000 people buy a DLC and then maybe it trickles out from there. Now, obviously, Diablo 4 sales numbers would probably be significantly higher than that, but you get the point that I'm making. Like, you allow people the ability to just keep spending, totally optional, totally volitional. It's not required. It's not needed. And it subsidizes the game. It subsidizes the ongoing format of the game. As opposed to DLC format. And that to me is the way forward. I'm also old and bitter. That's right. You think they'll also be like Assassin's Creed, where nothing in the game is in the game after launch? Well, no, they'll be adding stuff. I don't know what you mean. Nothing is in game after launch. What do you mean nothing is in game? Like, there's going to be plenty of things in game. You need to specify what you mean. I'm not sure what you're saying. Diablo 4 feels like a combination of D2 and Diablo Immortal. The only thing it has is it looks amazing. Way too many restrictions for a game that you're paying $70 for little player freedom. What are you talking about? What are the restrictions? 5 classes, 150 dungeons, open world, nightmare dungeons, PvP. What do you mean? What are these restrictions? What are you talking about? Seasonal content requiring you to start a new character, that's not a restriction. That's just how seasonal content was born, and that's how it's continuing. You ain't getting good cosmetics for endgame either. Almost no games do that. Your free crap will be like garbage, and the paid stuff will be okay, looks amazing, which is how they get you to buy it, whether it's coercive or not. No, that's false. No, they put out an entire blog about that. They put out a blog dispelling that notion. They showed you paid cosmetics and earned cosmetics side by side to show you that no, we are making sure endgame earnable cosmetics look really good. They're committed to that. And in fact, some of the early hands-on Diablo 4 gameplay, they said just that. They said, early game loot looks awesome. You think early game loot usually looks like trash. They have 100% shown that the end game loot in Diablo is going to look great. They literally did side-by-sides to show you, yes, you can buy stuff that looks awesome, but we have taken it upon ourselves to really make sure the end game loot in this game looks great. They spoke directly to that in a blog post. I don't buy into that reality anyway. I felt like people said that all the time about Destiny, and I always thought it was hogwash. I always thought, no. I 10 times out of 10 times, I felt like I looked better with the loot that I earned compared to the loot that you could buy from the Eververse. And you can't buy power in Diablo Immortal 2. I think it's clear they've spoken a lot more exhaustively to the pay to win. Like, they've spoken about it so much that it's gotten a little obnoxious. It's like they make sure and always bring it up. Diablo Immortal answered one question. Oh, you can't buy gear. Oh, okay, sure. You can buy crests. Diablo might do that now, but other games aren't. Armor isn't cosmetics. You got to wear the armor for that look. False. So I hope you aren't saying that's wrong for earned gear. No. You don't have to wear armor for that look. What are you talking about? Have you looked at any of the ways that this stuff's going to work in Diablo? Armor is cosmetics. The minute this has been established, the minute a piece of armor drops in Diablo 4, it's added to your wardrobe. Transmog. You can look like that anytime you want. There could be a helmet. Not every game has transmog. Oh, well, I'm talking about Diablo, though. I'm talking about their format. I'm talking about their way of doing things and why, optional cosmetics, I think, are totally fine when they show that the optional cosmetics are cool, but the actual earnable cosmetics are just as good, if not arguably better. So no, not every game, not every game has transmog, but Diablo 4 does. And in the realm of being concerned about like, oh, it's going to be paid, oh, it's going to be this, oh, it's going to be that, I'm like, I'm more worried about substance. I don't care about selling cosmetics. Games as a service is something that can't provide companies strong cash flow. Oh, that can provide companies strong cash flow for longer than launch. It's a newish model that has been both helpful for providing continuous updates, but also bad. The thing is, because it's ongoing live service, you have to do the Battle Pass model and not the DLC expansion model. There's no way to keep a constant stream of money coming in with the DLC system. Well, and that's the cool thing about Diablo 4. They're doing both. They're doing seasons and they're doing expansions. I promise you the money they make off DLC pales in comparison to cosmetics, says Wheezy. Hilly says, I agree, but many games make a great game and they don't do this crap, including Game of the Year. Wait, what are you talking about? Including Game of the Year? Show me a live service game that isn't doing some measure of this, Hilly. Seriously. I think the idea of a game lasting 10 years is a joke. If you want to do that, you need a subscription model. No game lasts that long. However, some games are so good, I've played them that long, off and on, every week. What do you mean? No games last that long. Destiny's 2 years away from saying, hold my beer. They're 2 years away from it. They're going to make it. They're going to make it a decade. Diablo 4 is like a year or two away from saying, hold my beer. Diablo 3. Diablo 3 is like on their 8th or 9th year. What do you mean? Y'all were just singing the praises of Diablo 3 and how you still grind the seasons. What do you mean? It's on its 8th or 9th year. Of course it can last 10 years. It's about to. Like, show me a live service game that doesn't have some element of paid microtransactions, paid cosmetics, or seasonal. For those worried about cosmetics, the one on the left is in-game and the one on the right is the shop. Yeah, they're not stupid. They picked really good armor for this comparison. But yeah, look at this. Come on, you piece of... Come on, history. There we go. Google history taking forever to... Like, they clearly chose really good stuff here. But yeah, the armor on the left. Armor on the left is in-game and the armor on the right is in the shop. Like, they're going to let you look really, really dope in this game. You're not gonna have to spend money to look dope in this game. Also, I don't consider items bought from the store to reskin armor transmog. I only count making earned gear look like other earned gear transmog. Store crap is just skins in a separate system. It's not a separate system. You can claim it's a separate system, but it's not. It all goes into your wardrobe. The minute this really amazing skull helmet drops, it's in my wardrobe. If I go and buy this helmet here, this split face helmet here, it's in my wardrobe. It's all the same system. I mean, you can try to claim that it's not the same system for your own liking, but like anybody looking at this is going to say it all goes into the same place. It all goes into my wardrobe. Do you really think that when you get all the way to level 100, you're going to be able to be like, well, you know, this helmet I earned, and this helmet I got from my battle pass, so they're not really the same. If they're in your wardrobe and you're customizing your look, then no one really cares. Like that, it's all part of the same. It's all part of the same animal. What are we talking about here? WoW is 20 plus years. Final Fantasy 14 is 10 plus years. Yes, they're MMOs, but they apply to contradict the no game lasts 10 years. Yeah, for sure. But the game is fundamentally the same game. Why keep giving them money? They're selling the same game over and over. Because people like the... Here's the thing. This is something that I don't think people realize this about video games. I don't think some of you guys realize this. A light bulb went off for me when I used to cover the old game, when I used to cover Destiny. I remember a light bulb going off for me. And the light bulb that went off for me was when I remembered my parents being in a bowling league. And every Saturday they would go and they would bowl in this league. And then recently, when I was up in Ohio, we all went bowling. And the amazing thing about bowling is it's the same. It's the same. Same crappy shoes, same crappy balls, same crappy lanes, same 10 pins. It's the same. And I think for some people, they find a game, whether it's Diablo 3 or whether it's Destiny, right? And it's bowling on a Saturday night. It doesn't need to change. It doesn't need to reinvent itself. That's just their place where they hang out. You know, it's familiar. It's safe. I was at a men's cookout. I was at a men's cookout with my church, and this guy was talking about how he still played Call of Duty 2. He had a server that he liked to play on with a bunch of his buds, and they played CTF. And he said everybody would get really mad if they made changes to the server because they were like, we're playing this because we don't like change. Like, this is what we want. Right? You know what I'm saying? Cousin, you want to go bowling? Yo, is that you? Is that you? We didn't get to see you when we were there for Thanksgiving. You should have come around. We should have tried to have you come around. But I think for many people, you're like, why keep giving them money? I don't know. Why go every weekend, go to the bowling alley with your buds? Why keep giving them money? It's the same game it's always been. It's just bowling. Gear without any gameplay has no value. I said, if you want 10 years subscription model, and WoW is that. Oh, yeah. Hilly did say that if a game's going to go that distance, they need to do subscription model. He did say that to his credit. He said, like, if games want to go that level of distance, they need to consider subscription model. If you guys are just tuning in, we're talking about Diablo 4 Seasons. I outlined the 6 things that I think they need to do. One of our major points of debate is I think they should let you do a seasonal grind without starting a new character. If you want to start a new character, fine. If I just want to use my existing character, I won't compete on the ladders or anything, but it would just be nice to be able to do that. That's just something we've been debating. Things need to change also. Things can't change too much or I won't like it. LOLK. Yeah, it's gotta... It's that valley, Wheezy. It's always been that way with games. People are like, I really want to see things change. And then it changes too much, and people are like, yeah, but not like that, you know? Not like that. It's really been 2,000 years? I don't know exactly how old chess is. Backgammon is, I think, older. I think early sets of backgammon were found before early sets of chess. But yeah. Funny enough, Bungie was testing a subsystem in D2. Yeah, they were considering submodel. Submodel and paid seasons are essentially the same, though. There's little functional difference. Well, there's a giant functional difference in that subscription model, if you don't pay, you don't play. And with the seasonal model, you can skip a season and just keep on playing. That's a pretty big functional difference. I know what you're saying, though, Eugene. You're saying, in essence, it's not, I think functional is the wrong word. In essence, it's the same. You're regularly giving them money on a regular basis. Add it all up, and it's kind of like a subscription fee. Functionally, it's very different because you stop paying your sub fee and you're done. You're not playing. History of chess can be traced back nearly 1,500 years. It's to its earliest known predecessor. I think chess is. I think backgammon. I think is older. Is it not? Backgammon. How old is backgammon? Ancestors. It comes from a large family of table games whose ancestors date back nearly 5,000 years in regions of Mesopotamia and Persia. So it looks like there might have been versions of backgammon found 5,000 years ago, or predecessors. Ancient game, though. Ancient game. Mahjong? Yeah, I don't know. What's the oldest board game? It looks like Royal Game of Ur. Apparently the game's rules were written on something by a Babylonian astronomer in 177 BC. That might be the oldest game known to man. Maybe. That's an old one. Yo, it's good, Zubair. Speaking of old, I'm just kidding. Poor Zubair. Content will make or break the game. This is why Diablo 3 failed. Nothing to do but play the same builds season after season. Did that game have microtransactions? Yeah, I don't know. You probably had to own wood in order to just make the sets. So, it was definitely pay to win, I would think. No. Not fair. That guy's dad owns a tree farm. Freaking pay to win. 1 hour play fun with any game for $1. Is it worth? I'm not sure what you're asking. Senate is the oldest board game, 3700 BC. Okay, so there's a game older. I mean, Google just grabbed like the top results, and it looked like it was the Royal Game of Ur was like a woodblock game. It was like 177 BC. So yeah, 3700 would be going back a bit farther. You had to pay for cosmetics to freshen up your board. That's right. Well, if you're new, hit subscribe so you can talk in my chat. If you've been here before, smash the like button so we can get this video seen by more people. We only need 50 more likes for a really good like ratio, and that'll help more people find it. You could also consider becoming a member. We've already had 57 new members today, and every 25, I have to gift 5. So thank you for everybody for making that happen. If that suddenly says 75, I have to do it again. So welcome on in. If you're new or you're one of the newer members today, feel free to weigh in on what you want from a Diablo 4 season. I've been arguing about requiring a new character shouldn't be a need. It shouldn't be heavily focused on cosmetics. It should be pushing the loot table forward. It should be something that touches the entire game to a certain extent. Use the dungeons, use procedural generation. I had a pretty lengthy list. My 6 items basically broke down into number 1, do not focus too heavily on cosmetics. That's tied to number 2, move the loot table forward, allow me to try out new builds, new gear. Make sure you're leveraging both the 150 dungeons as well as procedural generation. People will say it's recycled content, but I do think procedural generation is key. What do you guys think about that? That was one of my discussion questions I forgot to ask. Dungeons and procedural generation could feel like recycled content, but I think it's key to the ongoing seasonal format. I said that the entire game should feel refreshed to some degree after a year. What say you? And I think seasons should have more paid elements, but they're free, and I have concerns about substance. And then, should a season require a fresh character? Should they require it? I argued that giving people the option to not start a fresh character would be the right choice. I invested in Cones of Dunshire. Was that a game from Parks and Recreation? Diablo 3 100% didn't fail, but it did lose a lot of its core fan base from D2 due to its story, art style, and gameplay. That's what they mean. In terms of sales and community, it's the most successful Diablo game. Oh, well, yeah, when he was saying Diablo 3 failed, out of the box, yeah, it fell flat on its face. It almost just burned up in the atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? It almost crashed and burned because of the auction house. There was no end game. The end game was trash. I have a planned discussion about Diablo 4. I have a planned discussion about Diablo 4, and should it have a player-driven economy? And I don't want to talk about it today. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I definitely think there's something to be said for not doing that. You know, I think you've got to take that power away from the players. So we'll debate that another day. That's not today's topic. Today's topic is seasons and how seasons should work in Diablo 4. You don't need to retain your old players if you get even more new players. Well, you do though in a game like this. I don't think Diablo 4 lives if they take that kind of a cavalier attitude of like, we don't really need to retain old players, we just got to get new players. How many new players do you think are jumping in Season 9? Like, just be honest. How many brands new players? What's the ratio of new to returning players in like Season 9? I don't think new players is a high count at that point. I'm not consuming everything that is Diablo 4 yet, but have they talked about crossplay? Yeah, there'll be crossplay. PC and console be able to play together? Yeah, crossplay, cross progression. I'll be able to boot up in my living room on my PlayStation 4. I'm sorry, on my PlayStation 5. And then I can come into my office and play on my Series X or my PC. Yep. It's all on their servers. I don't have to worry about any of that. You can't have a never-ending revolving door of players. That's statistically impossible. Diablo 4 has a very loyal base. Oh yeah, they do. I don't think you have to worry about like I don't even know with seasonal content if they'll be doing that. Alienate the old for new players. How long will new players last till they alienate you? Yeah, you cannot create a churn. You cannot create a churn environment. If you create a churn environment, what ends up happening is everyone sort of approaches your game with an air of disloyalty. Do you understand what I'm saying? If they see the old players leaving, if they see that the game is primarily appealing to new players, then everyone is going to approach your game with an air of disloyalty. They're not going to play your game for very long. They're not going to really have an interest in playing for very long. Why would they? You just set everything up to run the existing player base out the door. Hilly says, PG worked in Diablo 1. I really don't care if the seasons are amazing. Diablo 4 needs to have loot in the base game on a drop rate of around 0.000000001%, and I'll play it for 10 years. I've dropped Windforce once in Diablo 1, never in Diablo 2, and about 100 times in Diablo 3. Diablo 3 is the problem here. So that's a discussion about loot generosity, Hilly, and I don't want to have that discussion today. I kind of want to save that for another discussion because we want to be able to come back to these games on the regular and discuss certain topics. And I would love to debate loot generosity with you and talk about why you're very wrong. That would be a fun debate, though. That would be a fun debate. But I definitely think the 0.0001% drop rates are, it's a bygone era. I don't think we're there anymore. I think we've left that era behind. And I would love to argue why. There's a lot of points to my argument that I'm not going to get into right now. I say we save that for later. Just like the economy debate, player-driven economy, with trading and all of that. No, I don't think you can do that. And that'll be another discussion and debate. We'll continually, revisit. We'll continue to revisit Diablo 4. I think it's a good subject. I think it's a good game. I'm looking forward to covering it and playing it. And we hope any of the new subs that came in today and listened to this discussion, come back for those other discussions, because there's a lot to break down in this game, and I don't think they're done talking to us and showing us stuff. Anytime there's new Diablo 4 gameplay or any Diablo 4 news or updates, we make sure and cover it here. We have it all on a playlist. And that's just something that, we're committed to. We definitely tried something new today, and we'll try, we'll continue to try things like this there's so many games out there. This is more of an opinion piece. We didn't grab like a piece of news to report to you. There wasn't any news about Diablo 4, and this morning we did a Transformer stream, so if you missed the Transformer stream. But related to the subject of microtransactions and spending, we recently had a pretty big debate about the dark arts in Hogwarts Legacy, and I have a video that I'm going to send you guys to. I feel like we went about as far as we could with this subject. Maybe the next debate will go a little bit longer, a little bit livelier, because we will have some maybe hotter subjects like that player-driven economy or loot generosity. But the next time we talk about Diablo 4, it'll either be like a news update or something, or new gameplay, or something like this where we grab a subject and just chop it up. So you can click the link in chat. I'm going to send you over to a premiere. We do upload content on this channel every couple of days. This is me reacting to an article that's saying they're going to have to balance the dark arts in Hogwarts Legacy because you can kill stuff instantly. So do me a favor. You can click the link in chat or ride the redirect. Stick around for the next segment, which is Hogwarts Legacy. They're going to have to balance the dark arts. What do you think about how they're going to do that? Well, check out this article that I react to. Click the link in chat, or I'll send you there in just a moment with redirect. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next segment, the next video. The link's in chat.